Hey there. So at this point, we've sculpted a skull, we've put in muscles, facial tissue, depth markers, things like that. But we got one problem. You might have gone through the part where we actually sculpt the face, and you might have come across the specific problem I'm talking about, and that is that she's not that attractive. She doesn't look that good. And what is the purpose of learning all of this stuff if we don't learn control? Well, that means that our job is not done. There is much more for us to learn, and we have to pull from even more ancient roots. So we're going to take a look at what's called the golden mean. And that is going to give us the tools that we need to systematize attractiveness. My goal here is not beauty. That's elusive, and that's going to be your task to try to create, find, and identify. But we can systemize attractiveness. We can develop some series of steps that we go through that will guarantee that our model has some level of attractiveness and looks fairly good to the human eye. So I've broken this up into a couple of different sections. We did the anatomy, we did the skull, we did all of that, and then attractiveness comes later for a really important reason. Number one, it's a lot of information to put in. If we start focusing on attractiveness in the beginning, then you just have to deal with a lot. It's possible, but there's a lot. Anyways, I wanted you to get in, get exposure, experience, start looking at it, and then you start to make those judgments about attractive, not attractive yourself. So now let's go in and take a quick look at exactly how this problem manifests. So let's take a look at a couple of scans of people in our industry that are reasonably attractive. Here's an old student of mine, and he's got that very classic proportioned face. So what is it about his face that makes it kind of strong and not unattractive? Hard for me to say that in the right way, but you know what I mean. From a guy's perspective, he's got a decent, solid face. It's well proportioned. Now, another person in the industry, one of my students, that's an attractive face from a guy's perspective, and there are certain rules and guidelines that are guiding our perception of attractiveness. So what are those rules? Now, I've already gone in and adjusted the sculpt, the écorché sculpt, to kind of fit this scan data. So this scan data combined with this face, and we started to pull in a sort of likeness. I'm not sure if I'll get it exact. Yeah, it's pretty close. Okay. Hairline's pretty accurate, and yeah. So keep in mind, I do not have perspective on. That's with perspective, kind of a little forced, but I'm using orthogonal. In both of these, orthogonal is active. All right. So what are the measurements that are making this more attractive than the face I had before? I mean, you can see as soon as I switch from one to the other, you can almost feel a certain lumpiness, dumpiness creeping in here. Feel the lips kind of get full and large. Feel the eyes kind of narrow, become smaller, and then you get this tiny, ill-proportioned nose. And those are, you feel them, or at least I feel them, and I definitely felt them after I did the sculpt. After I changed it, then I was like, whoa, big difference, Ryan. But that's fine, because we need a system of attractiveness. We need to understand why it's less attractive. Not just look at it and say to ourselves, hey, that's less attractive. You're not a good sculptor. That doesn't help. It doesn't do anything. It's useless information. To make a judgment like that, say you're not a good sculptor because it doesn't look attractive, is useless. If somebody was to talk to me like that, I would simply disregard them as being an idiot, because there's nothing. It has nothing to do with my sculpting ability. It just means that there's something to learn. And I guarantee you, it's something to learn for everybody. Everybody struggles with their sculpt looking good or not good. But the thing that's important to keep in mind, I'm sorry, I'm rambling a little bit here, but I want to emphasize this. The thing to keep in mind when you're looking at master sculptors or illustrators or creature designers or people like that is that they not only waded through the valley of the suck, but they came out the other side, and you never saw them in that valley because you never saw them working. If you did see them working, you probably saw the one where they successfully got out. Keep in mind, everybody goes through the valley of the suck. I've met a lot of artists. I've known a lot of people. Everybody goes through the valley of the suck and ends up making a sculpt that doesn't look pretty, and then they have to look at it and say, what the hell was I thinking? All right, so my goal here is to create a system for you that you can apply to your sculpts that will guarantee you a certain level of attractiveness. So that's where we're going to use the golden ratio. So I've got about 5 golden ratios here, and I'm using what I'm calling the golden ruler. The golden ruler is something we're going to look at how to create, but it's also going to be provided for you. But let's just take a look at one right away. So let's kill the scan on the other side and zoom in. So the golden ruler was created from basically the traditional process of creating the golden ratio, of getting that spiral that's kind of coming out from in here. I'm not going to do this correctly, but you get the idea. I'm going the wrong direction. Okay, so in this case, this is the image you may be most familiar with, this kind of sweeping arc through one part of it. Come on, Ryan. I'm trying to get that curve right. And then I'm not going to get it all that right. But anyways, you get the idea. This is what you're kind of most used to seeing, is that little spiral. And so there's a process that I use to build this up. It's not a process that's unique to me. Of course, this is actually this is just ancient, right? This is Pythagoras. This is with the development of geometry as a mathematical branch came this golden ratio. And so I build this golden ratio mechanism like this, and then basically extrapolate out this very simple edge. Okay, and this edge is what gives me that ratio of 1 and then 1.618 on and on from there. Now I'm not pretending to be an expert on this. I am a synthesizer of this information for you. My goal in giving you this information is to provide tools that artists have used throughout the centuries. You can go back and look at a lot of really awesome, amazing Dürer drawings where he's breaking out the body into proportions. I want to give you these rules, these systems, so that you can then apply them within certain ways and just marvel at kind of the beauty of all of this. But this is the basis of what we end up doing, establishing this golden proportion. When you read books about this, the golden proportion, the golden mean, the golden ratio has a whole bunch of philosophical connotations and all of that stuff. But we're going to keep this really simple and immediately applicable. So all of this was done. I built this whole little piece. Basically, I think it's something, it's for gnomic spirals. And you build them one block at a time, and it's the ratio and the way that you build them that it goes from there. But I'll show you that in another section. Right now, we're going to assume that you have a golden ruler, what I'm calling a golden ruler. right there. And that's going to be our ruler, which establishes our proportions of 1 and then 1.618, ... Okay, that's going to be the general rule that we use. So now let's go back and take a look at our model here. And go back into the other one. There's a couple of important ratios that we're going to learn to hit right off the bat. So one of them is the distance from the pupil to the nose, tip of the nose, I should say. We're going to assume that that's 1, and then the bottom of the chin becomes 1.618. So if we have this golden ruler, we can actually just scale it so that 1 is essentially the distance from the pupil of the eye to the tip of the nose, and or basically scale the entire thing so it goes from the pupil of the eye to the chin, and then we get the tip of the nose. That's the most likely use of this first measurement. And the advantage is we get the nose right off the bat, because we already have the eye, right? The eye is halfway. But we want to know the nose, we want to know the mouth. We also want to know the width of the eye, width of the nose, width of the mouth. We're going to actually do all of that with these proportions. So the first rule that I look at is pupil of the eye to help me place the nose. Keep in mind that the placement is not an exact science. I don't want to get carried away with exact precision, but I'm within the pupil of the eye. Most of the time I'm going to take half, but in this case it just went up a little bit. All right, now the next rule that we look at, this is going to help us place the lips. We go from the top of the head to the pupil. Notice it's at the halfway marker. Okay, that's going to be our 1.618, and then the lips. That's our 1. It's not exact precise, but it's close. And it's close enough to give you kind of the heebie-jeebies that you know this is actually there, this exists. And this is a system, you know, I can use. The next one I'm going to show you is actually, it does the exact same thing. So we placed the tip of the nose. We placed the tip of the nose by basically going from the pupil to the chin and then using our golden ruler for that. You can also go from the pupil to the tip of the nose and find the lips. It's just these become inverted. So now that's 1 and then 1.618. That's another rule that you can do, and that's in contrast to the rule that goes from 1.618 from top of the head, pupil of the eye, lips. Those are just two ways to do the exact same thing. And it's just kind of cool that they both exist and are functional there. This next measurement, something we're going to absolutely apply, is really amazing. Keep in mind that perspective is off. I'm using orthogonal. And this is essentially the frontocephenoidal process of the zygomatic. That's essentially what I've outlined, or where I'm going from one end to the other. And then half of that eye all the way down to the lip. So this is 1 and then 1.618. And that T shape creates part of the triangle that you'll see in sites like the Mask of Beauty, things like that. All right, the next measurement that we look at is going to be the width of the nose versus the width of the mouth. 1.618. Kind of cool. Just see that line up. Nose gets wider, lips get wider. Nose gets smaller, lips get smaller. Next rule, pupil of the eye. Okay, sorry, width of the eye, and then basically pupil to nose tip. So let's recount what we've done. Let's recount the options that we're making available. You know, these are all those different grids excuse me, that we're making possible, but let me hide them for the moment. Turn polyframe off. Okay, first thing we're doing is finding the nose. So that becomes the number one point that we find. The next one we find is going to be the lip. Okay, so this becomes the number 2 point that we're finding. And we have that other option, which is, I'll just call it 2B. And so that's using the the pupil, nose, and lip. All right, the other measurement that we find is basically from pupil to the lip, and that gives us the width from frontal cephenoidal process to frontal cephenoidal process. So the width is our number 3. That's really important. That's an essential measurement. Okay, the width of the nose, width of the mouth, that's another essential unit of measurement. And then the width of the eye itself. Those are 5 units that we get using a golden ruler. So now let's get in and actually build this or apply this ruler to our old sculpt and start to push and pull this stuff around.